And we're back here, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Zach Gelb, Chase Sr. here with you. Just wrapped up a few moments ago with the head coach of Miami and Jim Larrañaga. And now joining us in the studio is the assistant coach here at Temple University, and that's Dwayne Killings. DK, Zach Gelb, and Chase Sr., welcome. How are you?
Thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on, and there's been some big news around the basketball facility these last few days. We had Anthony Lee in the studio on Monday, and he is leaving Temple University. Has 20 schools that have contacted him. How shocked were you guys when you heard the news that Anthony Lee was deciding to transfer?
It was an unfortunate thing. I think Ant's been a big part of what we've done over the last couple of years and the success that we've had since he's been on campus. But, we wish him well, wish him the best of luck. I think he's got a lot of suitors, and now he's got to find the right place for him. And it's a great opportunity for the guys that we have coming back next year for those guys to step up and kind of take a part of what he brought on the court, but now try to add it back in, and we try to prepare for next season.
And you look at a player like Anthony Lee, had a lot on the offensive side of the game, needed to improve on his defense, but there's a lot of schools that are interested in him, and you have some players here. You're also bringing in Obi as a top 150 recruit. Who are some of the guys that you're going to look at to replace an Anthony Lee?
I think it will be, kind of a collective effort. Obi obviously will have a great opportunity with us next year. Jalen Bond's going to be a huge piece to what we do. He sat out this past year, and I think his leadership and just what he brings on the floor is a huge piece to fill in the void that Anthony's going to leave, and we're excited about it. And then obviously Mark, Devontae, Jimmy, those guys will have to step up and elevate their games over the summer. But I think right now the great piece for us is, just trying to prepare and think about next year. And, unfortunately we're not part of the tournament, but, I think you use this as motivation.
Coach, we had Anthony in here on Tuesday after he announced his decision, and he talked a lot about he wants to go to a place where he can play the power forward role almost all the time and line up next to a true center where he can face up to the basket more. Do you think at times he was playing out of position, or is that just kind of his personal preference that he would like to see himself play more of a power forward role?
Yeah, I think it's just more of his personal goals. I thought he had an opportunity to play basketball, and I thought he did some really good things for us. Obviously all of us had some things we could improve on in terms of the game of basketball, but he's got some personal goals and things he's trying to get accomplished, so we wish him well, and hopefully he finds the right spot where he can be successful.
Devontae was able to get some serious burn down the stretch for this team coming down to the wire this season, and he showed some positive signs. He can be disruptive around the rim. He can block some shots, pull down some rebounds, but he was a little bit inconsistent. What are some of the things that you'd like to see him work on? Because he came in here as a raw talent, and it seems as though he kind of still is a little bit of a raw player right now.
Yeah, he is. I think the big thing for Devontae is just continue to mature, both on and off the court. And the big piece for him is working at his body, getting stronger. I thought one of the things he does naturally is he gets to the right spots. He does a great job of using his length, but sometimes he gets off course just because he doesn't have the strongest legs, the strongest upper body. So a lot of that is just growing into his body. So I think it's a huge summer for him to work at not only his skills, but work at his conditioning and the physicality part of the game, the physical part of the game, sorry. Because if he can try to make a huge step with that part of it, I think he'll gain more confidence, which then will help his game both on the defensive and offensive end of the floor.
Temple's been in the tourney a lot, and you guys aren't in it this year. You're not in the NIT either. Is it weird not having any postseason play here?
Yeah, it is. The games have started, and, we're not sitting there watching film. We're not at the spots, and you get jealous of a lot of the teams. You start thinking back. I talked to a couple of the guys that played with us last year, and we started talking about the Indiana game last year. And, most times I think everybody's tuned in, looking forward to an opportunity to root on the Owls, and we're not there. So I think right now all of us are trying to think about how we can get back. And I think it's a moment where, the guys start getting jealous too. So they start finding themselves in the gym, and you try to use that as motivation to try to push yourself. But it's definitely, this year, especially just watching teams play, you start getting really jealous that we're not a part of it.
Last year, obviously, the run with Indiana was very special, and Khalif took him down to the wire, and he had a sensational tournament the first two games, and he left everything out there on the court. Now he's trying to make it to the NBA, played in China, is with the Springfield Armor. He joined us a few weeks ago. How close do you think he is to get into his ultimate goal, which is the NBA?
I think he's close. I think Khalif's a special talent. One of the things that you hear a lot of people talk about is just his basketball IQ, which is off the charts, and then he's got a special, unique game. I think one of the things he's got to do is just kind of stay the course this year. Continue to work at his game, continue to stay ready, because you never know when that call is going to come. And he may get a call up here soon, but if he doesn't, I think the summertime is going to get a chance for him to display what he does. And he's got such a great love for the basketball game. I'd be shocked if one of those 30 teams don't call him and say, hey, we want you to be a part of our franchise. And I think he'll do great.
He dropped 30 the other night, and the problem with him has kind of been his defense. But how impressed are you with the developments that he's made in his game, especially on the passing aspect? Because I'm watching some tape of these games, and he's finding passing lanes, he's creating for his teammates, and that's not necessarily something that we saw a lot of Khalif do before his senior year, which he started to finally do that.
I thought he's always been a guy that can make plays and makes guys better. I think in order for him to achieve the success on the next level in terms of the NBA, I think he's got to be able to facilitate. I think he's going to be a guy that looks that you'll look to be a scorer, but also be a guy that gets guys the balls in the right spots. So I haven't been surprised. I mean, he's a special kid and a special player, and I think what he's got to do is start to understand what he is at the next level. And that's probably going to be a guy who, number one, you bring off the bench to run the offense, but then when you have opportunities to score, you can score. Mm-hmm. And then it's about finding that one team that says, you know what, we need this guy to fill that role. And I think he's starting to figure it out. I'm not surprised he got better. I'm not surprised he's improving because he understands the game. He wants to be good, and he loves to play, which is so special. I remember when he came back from China, he came in our gym a day later after getting off the plane. He's in the gym firing up jump shots, working on his game, and that's just a special thing to see because he loves to play.
The Dingle loss this year was massive because you guys were already thin on numbers. How tough was it this year going into games where you didn't have that much off the bench and you were limited to a certain number of guys this year?
It was tough, but one thing that I loved is our guys competed. We didn't have necessarily a deep bench, but what we had was we walked in there with 9 guys that wanted to go in and win, and I thought those guys stayed the course every game. They just fought. They really grinded it out. I thought our guys were always competing. You look at the Memphis game, Anthony Lee was down. We take those guys, down to the wire, and, the guys stayed together. I was really impressed by those things, and I think it will make us better for next year because you had some guys that got more opportunity than we anticipated those guys getting at the beginning of the year, but I think it only helps us moving forward because now they understand what game competition is like, what's it like to be in those 2-minute situations and all those things that make teams really good that start making winning plays and winning those kind of games.
Well into the season, after a loss, when the losses were kind of mounting for Temple, Dunphy talked about in his post-game press conference that coming into the season, the team was kind of walking a fine line because they did only have about 9 or 10 players available to play. The lack of depth and the struggles this year, do you think that can be attributed a little bit to some recruiting misses that this team has had? Because it's such a competitive city here. I mean, you have Jay Wright at Nova and John Giannini at LaSalle, and Phil Martelli got Bembry at St. Joe's, and it's such a competitive city for basketball, and you're going head-to-head in these recruiting battles with a lot of talented teams.
Yeah, Philly's such a unique place. I mean, there's a lot of great coaches, a lot of great programs. I mean, you look at LaSalle, they just had a great run last year. Villanova's had great success. So I think all of us are trying to find guys that can help us push our program forward. Unfortunately, we didn't bring in some of the guys we set out to get early on, but we had the guys that we had, and I thought we did a great job of pushing those guys. And it's the crazy thing about sports is one injury can just kind of push you so far back.
Yeah.
And I thought Daniel was a huge piece to what we were doing.
On and off the court too.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm sure you guys see with him on campus, he's just such a great kid. You gravitate.
I've never seen him
in
a bad mood. He's always smiling.
No, and I think those things are huge. Those things help your team.
Definitely.
He's a guy that's always in the gym, so guys come in the gym. He's a guy that's always positive, so guys become more positive. And although he's still around, when he's not playing, it's just a little bit different, so his impact's not the same. So I thought that was a huge piece, and I think, again, the next thing is, the guys we have coming in that were that sat out this past year, and the kid that we have coming in Obi, those are guys that we're bringing into our family that the minute that they hit the floor preparing for next year, and that's what we're thinking about, and we're thinking about trying to get the postseason, trying to win a lot of games.
Without Anthony Lee, this team took down SMU in a wonderful game at the Liacouras Center, took Memphis to overtime down at the FedEx Forum, and played Louisville good for some spurts. Is there something behind Temple playing better when Ant wasn't on the floor, or was it just a good night for the Owls?
I think it's just guys stepping up. Mm-hmm. I think it's, one of the things that you see in sports is, you see a guy who's, getting a couple rebounds, making a couple baskets every night, then his number gets called to be a starter or get more minutes, and all of a sudden, he just steps up and does what he has to do, and that's what it's about. You want your opportunity, and I think sometimes when guys have been down, even, when Will was out with a concussion, I thought Josh Brown did some really, really good things, especially when we were on the road at Cincinnati. So I think it's just about those guys, taking advantage of their opportunity. And I think the most important thing is that guys understand, okay, I did it a little bit this past year. Now I have to do more next year. And I think it was also, guys understand, okay, this guy has to step up, so we got to push him. We're going to war with, instead of 9 guys, we're going to war with 8 guys or 7, or we got our 5, let's go on the floor, let's go play.
Dwayne Killing joins us in the studio, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And let's get to the tourney. The American Athletic Conference, it was their first year. I was a little surprised with the 2 selections of Louisville only being a 4 seed. I thought they were much better than that. And SMU didn't get into the tournament. Would you say there was a little bit of a lack of respect from the selection committee when it came to those 2 teams?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I thought SMU had a really good year. I thought one of the things that hurt them is they didn't finish as strong as they could have. But, they were a talented team. Louisville being a 4 seed, I was shocked. But I will say is I'm sure Coach Pitino's using that as motivation for those guys, to go as far as they can go in the NCAA tournament. It's been a really impressive tournament thus far. I thought teams have been playing great. UConn found a way to get a win yesterday against St. Joe's, and be interested to see how things go today for Memphis. And unfortunately, Cincinnati's out. But I think the conference is a hellacious conference. There's great coaches, great players, tough places to play. So I think as you watch the tournament, not only do you see our conference represented, but you see how many great teams there are out here. You see some teams that just 1-2 possessions away of winning games or getting upsets. It's just a special time of year.
Louisville had a scare last night, but Hancock bailed them out just like he did last year, and that great run in the Final Four where they eventually defeated Michigan and won the championship. He's just a real special player. Any night, I don't care. I'd take him on my team anytime. The guy's just clutch.
Yeah, I was impressed when we played him. We went on a little bit of a run. And, the guy gets open, bangs a 3. I mean, it's just automatic. And last night you see, they're making a little bit of run. The pressure's on Louisville, and he just calmly steps up and makes a big play. And one of the things that Coach Dunphy talks about all the time is, really good teams, they have guys that they make the right shot. They make the right play. They make winning plays when you have to. And I think that's the difference between teams advancing in the NCAA tournament and teams that can't find ways to win, because they make the open jump shot, they get the defensive stop, they get the loose ball, they get the rebound. They're just a little bit tougher, a little bit more focused. And I think he's an example of a guy that in big games he just shows up and he does what he has to do to help his team win.
How good is Montrezl Harrell? This team having to defend him and prepare for him, he's a handful because he's so athletic and he's so big and he's wide too.
Yeah, he's a strong kid.
Physical
such
specimen.
A great athlete. You watch him. I know when we played him, he just runs the floor so well. And then, he's sprinting down. He gets a block. Then he's sprinting down the other, and they throw him a lob. He gets a dunk. And one of the things that you can never measure is what those kind of plays do for teams. A kid that's big, gets a huge block, gets a dunk, his team's going crazy, the bench is going crazy, the crowd is going crazy. So they're up 4, but they have this huge advantage because there's so much energy in the gym and in their team. And then Harrell goes down and hits a 3, Russ Smith gets a steal, and so they get these huge runs because of what he just did.
Yeah.
The plays that
momentum
those
plays.
guys do. Yeah, it's a huge part to the game, and I think their team is made up of all those special things that help those guys go, and they get on runs that are hellacious, that will kill you.
The Atlantic 10 is a great league. I think they got 6 teams in the tournament this year. Like the AAC, it's a very competitive league as well. But this team moving into that conference and losing 5 seniors, which accumulated, I think, 75% of the offense last year, and having a young and inexperienced team that hadn't played that much together, was it a little bit more challenging than you had thought coming into this conference?
Well, before the season started, actually one of our GAs did a great job. He put together a packet, and it was of all the teams in the conference, who they had coming in terms of guys they recruited, who was returning on the team, and just kind of a snapshot of who they were. Yeah. And then you look at the coaches, and then you look at the place you're going, you're like, wow, this is a legit league. It's real. It's a real deal. I wasn't surprised. One of the things I was surprised about is the speed and the size of some of the guys. And then, when you talk about the good teams, you're looking at guys who, a lot of the teams had guys who were, a step away, if not definite NBA basketball players. I thought, if you looked at one of the things that was tough is just you had some guys had some inexperience. Quentin DeCozy, I think, is a special talent for us, but he didn't get a ton of experience last year, so now he's thrown into the fire. And, there was a little bit of a jump in terms of, I thought, the talent and the competition level. But, again, it's both great leagues, great competition, great coaches, I think is the consistent theme. And I think now our guys got a taste of it, and now they understand what they have to do to go back and win.
Let's go around here locally. Obviously, everyone wanted that matchup of St. Joe's and Villanova. It's not going to happen, but you get a fascinating matchup in UConn and Villanova. Those two teams know each other from their days in the Big East. And Napier had 24 points last night and was a little cold to start the game. He looks like he could be a real mismatch for Villanova, though.
Yeah, one of the things I thought he does a great job of is he's great in ball screen situations. I think he's a great basketball player. He can get shots for himself. He makes guys better. So it's going to be interesting how that game goes. Now, I think it can create some mismatches, but because Villanova can go small, I think it should be interesting how they defend those guys. One of the things I think you have to do is you have to watch the other pieces for UConn, like the kid Daniels, like the kid Gaffal who comes off the bench who can make shots. I think Napier does a great job of picking teams apart. And Villanova's playing great basketball. They got a little bit tested yesterday at spots in that game, but I think it will be a great game tomorrow night when you see UConn versus Villanova.
Last one for me. I was listening to an interview with John Chaney yesterday, and he was talking so much about his infamous zone that just gave teams such trouble, especially in the NCAA tournament when other teams didn't really have a lot of time to prepare for a zone defense. Temple has struggled on the defensive end, especially this year and somewhat last year as well. Has there been any talk about possibly maybe changing up the defensive scheme and maybe going to a zone more often, because it did work in times this year?
Yeah, I think we'll do it in some situations. If you look at like the Texas game, we went some zone, and I thought it helped us.
Josh and Will, they did a good job together.
Yeah, I think we've done it at times. I think what you have to do every year is you got to evaluate, your personnel, what's going to work well. And I think with the team that we have coming in next year, especially with a kid like Jalen Bond, anchoring your defense and being one of your defensive leaders, I think it gives you an opportunity to do so many different things defensively. So I think it gives us some freedom. And I think we have a lot of athletes. We have good size, good guys that understand the game, have great IQs. So I think, not only will we look at doing some zone stuff, I think we can do a lot of things in man-to-man. But the most important thing is I think that we start by trying to get stops, and then we go out and play offensive basketball. And I think these guys are buying into that idea already because they understand what they have to do to win games.
Right.
Before we let you run, you played 2 years at UMass, as we were talking about before you came on the air. Were you watching the UMass-Tennessee game today? I'm sure that's going to be on your watching slate of games.
Yeah, I'll definitely be watching it. I'm excited for those guys that they're back in the tournament. I think Derek Kellock did a great job. Chaz Williams is a special basketball player, and I know those guys are hoping he can help them get one of those special runs in the tournament. So it'll be interesting. There's a lot of great teams, but definitely jealous of all those guys that are playing in March right now. We're not, but definitely be watching and learning from those guys, and hopefully we can find some things to help us next year to get back to the tournament.
Well, Coach, we appreciate a few minutes today. Thanks for coming in, and
Thanks
we'll talk to you again real soon.
Thanks, guys.
Coach Dwayne Killens right there from the Temple basketball team. We'll take our final break of the day. Gelb and Chase here with you for the main event, and we'll be back to wrap up shop right after these short messages.